I'll let the chair know when we're live streaming. All right, we are live streaming now.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. It's 3:30, Monday, November 21st, and I'd like to call to order the City of Charleston Committee on Real Estate. Let's get things started off with an invocation. Councilmember Greg, will you please do the honors?
Let's just do a quick moment of silence. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Greg. First item on the agenda is approval of the November 7th, 2022 meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item is an authorization for the mayor to execute a second amendment to the amended and restated lease agreement between the City of Charleston and the Children's Museum of the Lowcountry. And I've got Ms. Copeland here with me, who can maybe provide a brief summary of what we have in front of us this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone on the committee. So as you know, we've been going back and forth with the Children's Museum. It started with originally coming to council on real estate with a potential quick claim deed of the building from the city to the museum. Council sent us back to the drawing board, so to speak, to work out some alternatives to allow them the opportunity to use the building as collateral for their renovations. And so now we are back before real estate with this amendment, and staff would recommend we approve this, but again, I'm sure Mr. Murphy and Mr. Rawl will want to be heard as well. Right now, what's before you is an extension of this lease to 99 years to December of 2021 with a 10-year option. A one-time payment of $1.2 million, which would be coming from the hospitality tax revenue, and then an annual payment of $50,000 labeled as a facility fee for maintenance and care of the building. And also in addition on this would be the mayor and 2 members of council who would serve as ex officio members. We did present this to the museum, and the one change that they did ask for and want to advocate for today is instead of a one-time payment of 1.2 million, they would like a payment of 1.2 million for 3 years. So each year for 3 years, it would be a payment of 1.2 million. So we felt it best to bring this to committee and council for discussion and consideration. So that's where we are.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Copeland. Any questions from any of the committee members so far? Councilman Shade.
So, Julia, we're going to make a one-time payment of 1.2 million in addition to the $50,000 contribution. I'm going to make sure I understand how this is going to work.
Sure. The way we have it framed right now is that 50,000 would be budgeted annually as what we're calling a facility fund, which we provide for other museums across the peninsula and the city. And the 1.2 million would be a one-time contribution toward their renovations. And that would be coming out of the hospitality taxes. And Amy, of course, can clarify any of that for you if you have follow-up questions.
But so just slow down with me a little bit. So we're going to make a contribution of 1.2 million.
Yes, sir.
And then in addition to that, we're making a $50,000 annual contribution.
Correct.
How many years?
The 50,000 would be indefinitely. The 1.2 is a one-time payment as it's written currently.
And when's the 1.2 due?
That's a good question, and one I don't have an answer to. Amy, what would you suggest?
We would budget it in the 2023 hospitality funds, Councilman Shade. So I guess we could reserve that until it's due.
So how much, if we go make a $1.2 million contribution from the hospitality fund, that means we're going to take 1.2 million from other funds that we normally get from hospitality account?
If that's correct.
I see that Councilmember Waring and Councilmember Gregg have their hands up. I'll yield and maybe come back to more questions.
Okay, I'm not sure who had their hand up first.
Councilmember Waring had his hand up first.
Okay, Councilmember Waring, please take it away.
Hey, hello, everybody. This is for the Children's Museum we're talking about, right?
Correct.
Well, first, how they coming along with their fundraising? I know they were in the process of raising funds. Mr. Rawl, can you touch base on that? What progress have you had?
Yeah, I think Mark might be able to address that one specifically, if you don't mind, Mark.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Thousand in fundraising. This is a relaunched campaign. As I shared last time, we did shift funds from our capital campaign project during the pandemic in an effort to keep the museum doors open, continuing to service the families of the Lowcountry with a much needed service during that time. But it did exhaust some of our campaign funds to do that and keep our doors open. We are back in capital campaign mode, have raised in capital contributions over $300K to date. And as I've shared with the mayor and Rick, we recently hired a new executive director that comes with development and fundraising experience, really focused on contributing to the sustainment of the museum through a robust capital campaign.
Okay, when you all doing the COVID piece, did you all apply for any stimulus funds?
There was if you remember, there was a program that was aimed at entertainment venues.
Right.
It was the only program that we could qualify for as a 501. And unfortunately, because of a qualification criteria that you needed to have permanent seating in the venue, we did not qualify for the entertainment sector pandemic funds. So it wasn't for lack of focus and trying, but we didn't receive any pandemic funds.
Wow. Okay. Churches and all got that money. I happen to sit on Catholic Diocese's Finance Council, and that's for the state of South Carolina. And they got 2 rounds of funding. I remember when Senator Scott put it in for churches to be eligible to get some of those funding. The piece about seats, I don't know about that. I believe you on it, just that I'm not familiar with that part. Obviously, the Gilliard got several rounds. Obviously, they have seats, but I'm just wondering if any of those dollars are still available, and maybe we can call on some allies who have been successful and maybe assist you all in making application for it. Obviously, keeping employees online to keep it open to provide the service to the community. Commend you for all of that. It seems like that stimulus should have been there for you in some shape or fashion. But anyway, thank you.
All right, Councilman Gregg.
Yes, I guess the first question I have pertains to our city budget. So do we have the 1.2 million? I mean, the museum's asking for 1.2 million this year, but also 1.2 next year and the year after that. So one, do we have those funds in the accommodations tax that we can apply to this?
Do you want me to answer that, Mayor?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
So,
thank you.
We asked for tourism information from the Children's Museum, and the 1.2 million from hospitality came from the percentage of tourists of their operation. So we could give them 1.2 million toward their renovation project. So no, we would not be able to do that on an annual basis. That was just our one-time contribution to their renovation.
Okay.
The $50,000 would be an agreement between the city and the museum on an annual basis towards their maintenance fund.
Okay. And what's on the agenda today, Councilmember Appel, is just the 1.2, the first year 1.2, and I see Councilmember Shade not shaking his head.
Yeah, the lease amendment is drafted that I see section 2 here speaks about a one-time,
Just a one-time payment.
just a one-time payment of 1.2. And it-
Okay, but the museum's asking for.
Plus $50,000 a year for perpetuity.
Right, no, I understand that, but then there was other discussion of another 1.2 next year and another 1.2 the year after that, but that's not on the agenda, if I'm correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay, so we're just moving forward. What we're talking about today is just the 1.2 million for 2023. My next question and last question, sorry, would be for the folks from the Children's Museum. What my recollection was the initial budget was what, $5 million for this project?
Oh, it was 4.
Yeah, the $4 million came from the assessment we got from if we were owners of the building, that we could go leverage that. You know, the total project is north of 5 million, but to get the building completed, we're estimating it at the $4 million mark, you know, based on the last time we got this quoted by Hood Construction.
Okay,
You know, there is some interior projects that, you know, we could use capital campaign and continue donations for. But, you know, the intent of this project is to move the stairs from the promenade area around to John Street, and then do, you know, some health and safety renovations, and then a much needed exterior facelift to the museum.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, did you have your hand up?
I did, thank you. So, am I reading this right, that the lease expiration would be December 31st, 21? I hadn't seen that number out there lately. That's 100 years from now?
It's the future.
Yes, sir, by my calculation using Google.
Right. So, I guess, Edward and Mark, I got to just ask this question, and don't get me wrong. I certainly understand y'all would like as much participation from the city as possible. I get that. You know, from where we started, frankly, I think this offer of the one-time 1.2 million and then the annual ongoing expense is very reasonable and fair from the city, generous in my humble opinion. But what I gotta get over here is that if we were to do this and then we extended that lease all the way out in 100 years, it was done from our perspective to allow you to be able to borrow that money that you needed to do the project, because 100-year lease, you know, that's almost like owning the property, right? I know banks look at leaseholds different from fee simple ownership, but when you get over 60 or 75 years, you know, you're definitely well past the useful life of whatever improvements you're going to make in the first place. So, would you be able to do this project with this offer? I guess is my bottom line question.
Mr. Mayor, I think it is very generous, and we appreciate that. I think the issue with the $50,000 requires approval each year for council for it to make it happen, and we don't think that that's going to be necessarily be able to be borrowed against, because it's not in stone. You guys might change your mind. There might be a new council might decide that that's not what council wants to do. I don't believe that to happen, but I don't think that that's enough for a bank to borrow against over a long-term or even a short-term loan. Mm-hmm. That's that piece. I think the issue that Mark and I just want to make sure that you guys understand and appreciate where we're coming from is that we want to make this a world-class children's museum for a world-class city. And we think there's a funding gap. And we don't think the 1.2 gets us there. It gets us somewhere, but it doesn't get us to be a world-class museum. And when you look at Columbia and the $6-7 million that they've given Adventure, and you look at Savannah You look at the $9 million they've given that museum. Those museums look different than our museum. And just want you guys to appreciate that we would appreciate everything that we can get from you guys and don't want to promise the world with 1.2 because we think it's a bit more to chew off than that. But we're certainly appreciative of everything you're doing.
But could you get the project done that was proposed to be the $4-something million project to redo the stairs and the exterior and all the stuff? I know it won't get you to be maybe a world-class museum, but can we at least, I mean, these are the basic improvements we've been talking about now for about 3 years. And I mean, if this doesn't work for you, then it almost seems to me we need to scuttle it and go back to the drawing board.
Mark, do you want to take that?
Mr. Mayor, I just support Edward's statement. It is a generous offer, and we've certainly come a long way. And thank you for that, and Julia for that, and Rick for working with us. Our concern is, we cannot get the project as we scoped it done for the current monies on the table.
Yeah.
It's possible to relook the scope of the project. But at a point of making a commitment here to get that project done, we would struggle to get that project done for the 1.2 million, which is really why we had focused on that $4 million number. And the 3 years times 1.2 got us close to that $4 million, where we could come back and say, make the exchange commitment that we would get that project done.
Right. Well, yeah, the 1.2 times 3 plus the 50,000 a year, you're there with the 300 you got sitting in the bank, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Understood.
Councilman Waring, I'm gonna call on you.
Yeah,
Council member, could I just make it? I mean,
certainly. Go ahead.
You had a suggestion for Mark and Edward to look again elsewhere. I mean, the state did a nice gift to a couple of projects like this last year, and from my understanding, from what I've heard from good sources, they're going to have another excellent year and have some resources that they could allocate to something like this as well. So I'm just questioning whether we don't try to get all the money together first. Again, the impression I had was that with the extension of the lease term, you'd be able to get the financing in order to make the project happen. Anyway, excuse me, Councilmember Waring.
No, you're quite all right doing that. I think one of the issues are, fortunately, I think from when you all first presented to council, I don't know, a while back, raising money for the Children's Museum. Tell me the difficulty. Tell me some of the hurdles you all are having in raising money for Children's Museum. Tell me some of the hurdles in the place that you have. Have y'all gone to the Dominions of the world and the B of A's of the world and AT&T's of the world, that kind of thing, and had the door shut up, or the Blue Cross and Blue Shields of the world on the state level, to attempt to get donations for this project?
Yeah, the issue on the statewide level is, you're competing with a wide range of other entities that, are closer to the state capital kind of sphere of influence. So, we have struggled on the state level to get support for, a Charleston entity. We have donations from all the major banks in town. Boeing has had a generous donation, and we're out fundraising constantly. As people that understand fundraising in Charleston, it's a small community with a lot of needs. So, when you look at the African American Museum, the Gibbs, all the other things that compete for people's contributions, it's a difficult town to raise money in. And, the capital project, the exterior of the building is not the only thing that, we need to fund to keep this operation going. We have a constant need to refresh exhibits to make sure the content is up to date for our children. This is not just a play institution, it's a learning institution. So, we have a staff of educators. We have a mobile facility that gets out into the surrounding communities that may not be able to make it downtown, and truly service the larger demographics of the city of Charleston community. So, it's a constant fundraising mechanism to try to do everything we want to do. This exterior building project we think is obviously overdue. I think the mayor agrees with that. The museum needs a facelift. It needs an exterior facelift to match what he's trying to do, what the community is trying to do in that piece of the city. And complement the promenade project that really is going to be a showcase part of the city when the lower line gets done. So long answer, Councilman Waring, but we are out across the state raising funds, attempting to raise funds in all those pockets of entities that are out there.
And you said that basically ballpark that the funds that you've raised so far is roughly about 350,000.
Funds that are dedicated and earmarked for the construction project.
Right. That's what.
For example, the Boeing gift is focused on an exhibit that matches Edward, it matches how they want to give money, which is STEM education.
The companies like Boeing, and I have the conversations with colleagues at Mercedes and Volvo and others, they want to give money towards actual programming, teaching kids how to program and design and 3D print and understand why planes fly and sailboats sail. They're interested in the educational piece of it, not necessarily moving bricks from one side to the other and fixing external things. That's harder to raise money for when you go to companies around town to try to do this. So we've raised a lot of money in addition to the 300 that Mark's talking about for the building. It just goes to the interior part of the educational programming and exhibitry.
So when you include that portion, how much have you raised? The portion that goes to the programmatic part on mission.
Yeah, I don't have that number, but I can get it for you. But if you look at the real, and I know you've been through the museum and other council members have been through the museum, that's where the rubber meets the road, and you can see the benefits of what we're doing. But I don't have that exact number for you today, council member.
It's okay. You can get it to me later. Thank you. Thank you.
Just for example, the two Boeing gifts I think are around to combine $500,000. So it's decent money. It's
right. That is decent. Thank you.
Councilman Shade?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm gonna make a motion that we defer this matter. And what I'd like to see is a more detailed plan on their what they want to do with the $1.2 million. How they plan on spending it, what the exact proposals are. And I just don't think I can give you a blank check for $50,000 for the next 100 years without having some idea of what we're doing with this. So I would recommend that, and I know we've been bouncing this back and forth, and I'm not sure who's been involved in the planning stages of all of this and this proposal, but I would like to see a little more concrete information before I'm going to vote on a $1.2 million contribution and the $50,000 for the life of the lease. So I make a motion to defer this.
Second.
All right, moved and properly seconded. Any discussion from council? Does anybody have anything else they want to mention, Councilman Waring?
You're muted, Councilman Waring.
Thank you. Yeah, I kind of think with the city coming up with the 1.2 million is certainly a positive step forward. It may not be what you all want, but I think it certainly shows progress that you all can go back to your board with. Councilman Shade, I hear you on that, but I'm just wondering, is there some way we can come up with some sort of hybrid to show good faith on the part of the city, that instead of just deferring and sending them back, come back again? But I think we could do what we could afford to do, and then hopefully maybe as stakeholders, I do think we need to have some conversation or some sort of charrette around this issue.
Yeah, Councilmember Waring, I think that, to their point, they want a first-class children's museum, and I want them to have a first-class children's museum, and I want the city to partner with them and help them along that way. But I mean, honestly, when I read this, we are stewards of the public funds, and if I'm going to vote on 1.2 million, I want to see something. I want to have a little more idea of what we're doing with the money, how it's going to be spent. It's concerning to me that the fundraising efforts, and I hear them. I think they're being very blunt with us and candid with us on the efforts to raise money on this thing, and that their donors are interested. I've heard this before. The donors are interested in not the brick and mortar part, they're interested in other components of this. We've got to help them. I mean, our obligation to the Children's Museum is to help them. But and maybe your idea of a charrette or some more city council level discussions with them on the ground floor may be beneficial. And I'm not volunteering. I got enough on my plate to do that. But I want to help these guys out. And I want to help the museum out. But I just can't go to my constituents and say, oh yeah, I just gave the museum 1.2 million. What's it for? Well, some plans I got coming down the pike. I need something more solidified, and how this is going to help them further the progress on getting the balance of that money. So that's why I want to defer it to get more answers. So
okay,
that's why I made that motion.
got you.
Understood. I see Councilman Gregg with his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I would point out that the folks from the Children's Museum have presented some design outlines and some renderings, things that is part of that. I guess that was maybe 6 months ago or so when they originally came to us. So thank you all for that. I mean, I think we have a good understanding of what that project is. But I guess, from my perspective, 1.2 feels like a lot of money. It feels very generous. And so, I would vote in favor of that. I do think we need to look at these lease terms. I'm not comfortable with a 100-year lease either for $50,000 a year. So, I hate to send these guys back and defer it again, but I just think for what we're talking about, and what's that, $5 million plus the 1.2? I mean, that's a lot of money. So we got to have a better understanding where it's going, as Councilman Shade said. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I see that Mr. Rawl raised his hand, and I think it would be polite and politic to recognize him if the committee is willing.
Absolutely. Happy to hear.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It would just be helpful for us. We want to not waste you guys' time. That's the last thing we want to do. We want to come in here and you guys feel good about what we're presenting. And when we look at other projects that have seemed to work in the budget, when you look at the capital improvements that have been funded for the Gibbs and the aquarium, what are they showing that's concrete enough for you guys to feel comfortable? Because that's what we want to show you. And then I guess to the comment on the $50,000 is we are totally aligned with the mayor or two designees from council being a member of our board. There's no hiding the ball here. We want you guys on our board. We want you to be in there and have the books open and making informed decisions with us. So I think that kind of dual partnership allows you guys to maybe have some comfort in where the money's going, because you're going to be right there with us every step of the way. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to emphasize that that's a great idea from Edward. And I nominate you and Stephen Bowden to be on that, since y'all got young children.
I move to defer that nomination.
The question on the floor is a motion to defer. I see the mayor's got his hand up.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, please.
Just a final comment and or two, if you don't mind. And Edward and Mark, I think having the board membership from the city, if we're a real partner, makes a difference in the long run. I've seen that to be the case with the other cultural arts organizations where we have that kind of participation and relationship. In other words, you got a couple of council members and a mayor that is more up to speed on the organization and what y'all are doing, and we can be advocates, you know. So you know, and to Councilmember Gregg's point, I think that's right. You know, if we have seen details of what y'all want to do on this specific project, and we saw those at the last meeting, and I concur with him. If our $1.2 million would get you over the hump and get that project completed, even though I understand that's not everything y'all want to do, I think that would be a real positive step forward. And frankly, it would be kind of consistent with what we've done with the other organizations. Take the Gibbs Art Gallery. When they did a major renovation of the building, it was probably a $10 or $12 million lift, and the city put in $2 million. So we put in something like 20% of the total budget. And so we kind of thought this was comparable to that situation. And I understand y'all, I hear you had difficulty on the capital side. And boy, I appreciate the fact that this may sound funny. You know, my brother's a pediatrician, and you know, he always used to say that the adult medicine gets all the money because nobody's looking out for the kids, you know, and I don't know if that really applies here or not. But you know, we have to look out for the kids because they're not here lobbying in front of this committee and city council. And maybe it would help if, no, I'm not going to suggest that. But anyway, you get my drift. But if we could work out something that moved this particular project along specifically, and I know that would put the onus back on y'all to commit to some more either fundraising or borrowing to make it happen. I'd like to think that's a path forward.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Councilman.
Let me ask one last question. I'm not saying this to be facetious. You know, Mr. Rawl, you said something earlier that about world class. Is this the location for a world class children's museum? And I'm not saying that to tug at you, but I'm wondering if there's a better location and maybe a longer term plan, you know, get you in a new facility that you don't have the constraints of a historic building that, you know, limits. That's always going to, in my opinion, always going to be a limiting factor on the museum and stakeholders because of frankly, the building that it's in is where it's located. Have y'all had any conversations, you know,
Sure.
proper expansions? One of these days, I guess, you know, Golden Pond, we'd like to have, you know, this.
Yeah, we certainly have talked about it, but we're committed to being a world-class facility in the middle, a world-class facility, a museum in the middle of a world-class city. Maybe one day down the road, we have different locations, but it's not going to be any cheaper for us to buy land and put, you know, sticks in the ground to do that right now in this environment. And so we want to be where we are. We're committed to being downtown. We're committed to being right in the heart of where a lot of our underserved communities are, right there near where a lot of our underserved schools are, and right there for people coming to visit this great town. Just like most other great towns, have a place to bring their kids to enjoy a little time with their family so that they don't have to, just go around shopping all day long, but they get to really learn something.
Yeah, I got you. Now, let me tell you one reason I asked that, because long time ago, 3-4 years, eternity, and especially holding the office, there was talk about expansion on the aquarium garage. As a matter of fact, when you come out the garage, the little land piece, if you go into the aquarium, you come out the garage and you're walking towards the aquarium, the little piece of land that's there, some of you all may not know, that's where the International African American Museum was going to be built. Okay. Anyway, long story short, Senator Leatherman, God bless him, got involved, and we're now in the harbor where it is today. But there was some thinking expanded, but the garage needs to be expanded. And in the basement, not in the basement, but the first floor could be something like a children's museum, for example. That's what I was, it's just, several conversations that really was a non-starter. But, if you had the Children's Museum over there, you got the aquarium over there, you got the International African American Museum over there. That's what I was talking about, long-term plan. But anyway, thank you. I thought I saw the mayor's hand go up, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor, did you have some further comments?
Call the question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I will do that here momentarily. I haven't had an opportunity to comment on this, and I just want to say that Edward and Mark, appreciate everything y'all are doing. We're going to get there. I think we all want the Children's Museum to succeed, and I don't think we heard a lot today from the committee, but one of the things I don't think we heard was a resounding no to the idea of a $1.2 million contribution to this effort. I think we're all generally on board with that. It's just we need to see that as part of a total puzzle to get there. And I think that perhaps coming out of this meeting, when y'all go back out to your donors, when you go out to your network, when you go out to the community, you can say, look, the city of Charleston's kicking this fundraising drive off to the tune of 1.2, and hopefully that provides some momentum to get there. So when y'all come back to us, we can knock this out and get y'all on your way to rehabbing the facility. So I just wanted to maybe end on a positive and optimistic note on that. And with that all being said, I'm going to call for the question. All in favor of deferring the matter, please signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. Thank y'all again, and let's keep at this, okay?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you all. Next item on the agenda is approval of a parking lease agreement between the city of Charleston and the IAAM for the back surface lot at the Charleston.
Move for approval.
Moved and
Second.
properly seconded. Do we want to hear a brief explanation of this from staff? Just for the record, who's Matt, is this in your portfolio?
Yes, sir, it'll be mine.
Thank you.
So this is just the city standard parking agreement. It's for 10 years between the city and the IAM. It is for the entirety of the back surface lot. That is there at the Maritime Center in between Inspection, Warside, and Concord Street. It's approximately 51 spaces. It would be managed through permits by the IAM and enforced by the city like any other surface lot in the city.
Understood. Thank you for that. And I had the opportunity to tour the International African American Museum on Friday. And if you haven't been out there recently, it's amazing how much progress has been made out there. So this is very exciting to see one more element of this important project come into fruition. Any questions for staff or further discussion?
Well, one thing I'd like to.
Sure, Councilman Ware.
I just want to thank you all for making the sacrifice to come over there and do the tour, because there's one thing as we do these major projects. I remember with the gear yard, sometimes we get dusty going over there at the various construction phases. So we kind of lived part of it as it was rising up. And I know anybody who went over there certainly can feel the momentum building towards opening on that. So I really appreciate y'all taking your time coming through and doing that. So I want to make that comment. Thank you.
Absolutely. It was spectacular. Councilman, I'm sorry, Mayor Tecklenburg.
So, Matt, if I could ask a question, and then I just want to maybe propose something going forward about the beautification primarily. But the number 9 mentions the parking lot management, but that seems to be mostly about just the, decals and who gets to park there and that kind of thing. Is there any agreement as to the maintenance of the lot? I know we just put it in better usable condition, I guess in preparation of this lease, but over the 10 years, how does that work?
So it'll be handled like any of our other gravel surface lots, the Haygood surface lot, the Front Maritime Center lot, Columbus Spring, which we just did. We review them quarterly. We include maintenance funding through our parking fund with ABM to have them. We usually coordinate with public service. Parking management company acquires the gravel if needed, has it delivered. Public service comes in and does the grading and filling. We would do that lot. It would be reviewed and taken care of and maintained on a quarterly basis like any other gravel lot in the city. Gotcha.
So, one step beyond that probably would not normally be included, like those other lots, is some beautification and landscaping. We're just about to open a $75 million building next door. We paid about $800,000 to bury the utility lines right in front of the parking lot for the bus drop off. And I just happened to run into Edmund Most over there the other day and Clark, when I was coming off my tour, and they are going to try to just plant a little strip of grass along the sidewalk. But of course, they said, we have no budget, Mayor, for any of this. And it's the oak trees around the perimeter of the lot are pretty mature and look pretty good. So I think for, some reasonable budget, we could do a little more planting, just some landscaping of some shrubs, some flowers maybe around the perimeter of the lot, and make it look nicer. We have such a terrific investment there. It looks a little out of character to me. Of course, that ugly chain link fence is still there, but that's going to come down soon. But still, I think we ought to beautify it. I just wonder if maybe we could take the first 4 or 5 months worth of income from this lot and allow our Parks Department to have, or the museum, whoever wants to take it on, to do a little beautification.
So, Mayor, in a lawn inspection and Warside, you're correct. Those 2 streets, which make up half the lot, there are some very mature trees. They grow right next to the road. They go under the sidewalk and actually come into the parking lot. So there's probably not a whole lot of room there. It's also a very shaded area. I'll be curious to see how Parks is going to put some sod in there where they can. Obviously, along the other side, you have there's a sidewalk and the apartment complex condos. So there isn't really any space to do any landscaping there. The condos have some there. Along Concord, there might be an opportunity. I know we're going to sod that area. There is a new fresh sidewalk there. That's where the poles used to be that you referenced, which are now underground, where the curb cut is for tour buses. That is a full sun area. There may be an opportunity there. I think the main concern right now is getting sod down, because there's kind of a small grade that goes down from the parking lot to Concord Street, just to make sure that there isn't any washout with heavy rain. Yeah. Something we could look into. There may be an opportunity there, but I think it's really about securing the ground right now.
Well, with the bus drop off being there, just to have a few nice benches out there would be nice.
Certainly.
Yeah. Or, a little row of sweetgrass or something, not expensive, not a ton of money, but you could spend 15 or 20 grand there.
Those are some good ideas. We certainly want this to marry well with the new museum next door. Any further discussion from the committee? Hearing none, I will call for the question. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Guys, have it.
Great.
On to the annexation portion
Move
of,
that all annexations under C, little I, 1 through number 9 be approved, Mr. Chairman.
motion on the floor to approve all the annexations. Can I
I
get,
second it. I second.
I got a second from Councilman Waring? Any discussion?
What's going on in District 11, Councilmember Appel, all these annexations?
I gotta say, I'm happy to report, we got, let's see, 4, 8, and we got 9 annexations today, and 4 of them are over in District 11. 2 in West Ashley, 2 in James Island. And then we've got District 9 well represented. We've got Councilman Shade, and 1 over in District 5, and Molly is burning the midnight oil, it seems, doing a great job, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yay, Molly.
Woohoo!
Absolutely. And we'll good deal. We'll any further discussion from the committee? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. Anything else for the good of the order?
Move that we adjourn.
All right.
See some of y'all.
You're adjourned. And see everybody at, I believe,